So Jesus is talking about inviting people to dinner who are crippled and the blind. And I think of myself, yeah, being blind and having dinner is a unique experience. You know, trying to figure out what's going on my plate there. Wonder I was at somebody's house for dinner and they set the plate before me and they go, "Do you go by time?" I go, "No, I go by Tim." Oh, sorry, no. I see what you mean. No, they meant, to tell me that your potatoes are at 12 o'clock, your peas are at 3 o'clock. Oh no, peas, that's a hard one. Yeah. Use a fork or a spoon for that one? I never figured that one out. I think you just need a funnel. But, with eating, it's always a bit of a mystery, especially if there's, things on bones and complicated things. I don't know how many times I've cut into the string of a steak and tried to eat it, or ate lemons on a Caesar salad, or, or different things like that. It's always a bit of an adventure, But it's something where with the help of friends, I can figure it out, And sometimes, as a priest, I get invited to some even more fancy, fundraiser events or like fancier dinners with the bishop or something like that, and it's always a little intimidating with all, what fork do you use for this or that or whatever, and I always remember one of my favorite tips that somebody gave me with the plates next to your, is which one's for your bread and which one's for your dessert. And they say, put your hands like this, and the B is for the bread and the D is for the dessert. Okay, that's a good tip. I don't need to use it too often, but that's but just eating is is something that, is something for me that's a challenge. But with the help of others, it's no problem. I can make it work. Lots of and it's the kind of thing that I can't really repay people for, right? But it's something that it helps me out, and to feel like I belong or can fit in at different things, despite my disabilities. And people have always been so good to me. So I feel I'm almost a direct recipient of the kind of message that Jesus is proclaiming. And just the love and helpfulness of others. And so I know at a deep level what that feels like to receive that kind of higher level of love and charity from other people, right? And so this idea for us that we're in a world right now that really tries to be accommodating, especially in a lot of the first world countries. We have a lot of things that make things accessible for people with different disabilities and struggles. There's all kinds of charitable organizations, right? There seems to be a desire in society to make sure that people with different struggles can find a way to have independence and to fit in. That's really coming out of the heart of the Christian West, spreading throughout the world. This is a real gospel message that's been sort of like yeast in the dough of society, kind of leavened in there through the centuries since Christianity. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to witness. It's so good to be thoughtful of the needs of others. And as pastor here, I'm starting, I guess this is beginning my third year here, so I've been here for 2 years, and in those 2 years I've been sort of paying attention a little bit to all the different sort of appeals and fundraisers and charitable projects going on, and sort of recognizing when there's like the Be an Angel campaign in Advent, for example, or different things for Father Eric Terrio's fundraiser thing, and then different things for Chalice, or pro-life fundraiser things for unwed mothers or whatever, just different, you name it. There's just so many things. So just trying to pay attention to that and recognizing, there's some stuff that we really need to kind of, really rally around. And I'm desirous of how to get the most impact with these kinds of things. Because sometimes it seems like you get a little bit here and there, and all of a sudden there's this fundraiser and that fundraiser and this event, and you're like, whoa, like trying to get a sense of the overall impact of that. Because we as Holy Trinity Parish want to be able to continue to give and support important causes as best we can, to be people who have outreach, right? Remember, we want to be explosively alive in the Spirit, and transformed in community, or strengthening community and transforming the world for Jesus, right? And part of our transforming the world for Jesus is that outreach to others, right? And doing it with love. And so I was thinking it'd be great to consolidate a lot of these efforts. And so one of the steps I took was to look at this idea of the CWL, the Knights of Columbus, the St. Vincent de Paul Society, and Beacon House as sort of 4 main partnerships that we can sort of rally next to and sort of work with their different efforts and try and help make that a success when they're doing such good outreach, and to really help out. And so trying to find out more about these 4 in particular. and all the different efforts that they do and to get the most impact with that. Because there are so many things we could contribute to or help out with, but I really think it's good for us to try and hone it in as best as possible. For example, say you had $100 to give to charity. You could give $5 to 20 charities, or you could give $20 to 5 charities, or you could give $100 to one charity. Like what's the best impact, right, for example? And so for us, I'm looking at ways to work with these 4 partnership groups to sort of schedule things in more like higher impact weekends that are going to get the most, taken. So it's a learning curve. We're sort of going to figure this out, through trial and error a little bit and look at things. We get a lot of requests for, hey, can we raise money for this or for that? And I'm working with the Finance Council to look at how can we sort of strategize that. How many extra envelopes do we really need to have in our box to get the most impact? I've also had the pleasure of, in the past about 10 months or so, I've been meeting once a month with different Christian leaders in the Sackville area, right? So the pastor at Rock Church or Vineyard Church or Salvation Army and the United Church up the street at Knox United and different, all these different groups. And so we're meeting once a month on Tuesday afternoon, and it's really neat to meet these other Christian pastors and to see how can we, really make a better impact with our communities in this society, in Sackville area. And so one of the smaller projects we're doing right now, as you've seen in the past month, is this Sackville Cares project to get toiletries and goods for those in the shelters in our area. And so that's been a great success. You guys have made me proud as punch to show up to the meeting, and it's like so much of the stuff that's come in the contributions is a lot from Holy Trinity Parish. And so it's like, so we can really celebrate that. This parish has, a reputation for being very giving, right? Whenever people ask Holy Trinity for help, you always step up to the plate. So it's something we can rejoice in, that there is a lot of generosity and charitable, goodwill here in this parish that's worth continuing. And so with the various partnerships here at the parish, especially the 4 main ones, and then with also working with this Sackville Cares group in the broader Christian community, these are ways that we can really go for it. One of the things that the Sackville Cares group is doing is we're trying to look at the spectrum from, total homelessness to owning a house. So getting like in the spectrum from there to there, one of the first steps is like emergency shelters and like warming things like we have at Beacon House or with our 2 tiny homes here on site. These are ways that in Sackville, a lot of that's already being cared for now in different ways. So the real need seems to be affordable rental, right? To get people to be able to afford rent so that they don't have to always rely on the shelters or to lose hope that they'll never be able to get their own house, to get a leg up in the world if all the money's going to rent. And so we're really looking at that. So stay tuned for those kinds of initiatives as the Christian communities we try and figure this out here in Sackville in particular. But there's all kinds of ways that we can give and help to make those who are less fortunate than we are to really get a leg up in the world, right? And so we can help in so many ways. So I'm looking at this year for different ways to consolidate our efforts as best as possible, and then hopefully maybe by next year we'll even have a more robust program where we can kind of maybe by the fall next year give you like, okay, between now and next August, here's kind of all the various times we're going to be coming to you to ask, right? Otherwise, I'm sure it can seem pretty random. I imagine being a parishioner, and like from one weekend to the next, you don't know what they're going to be asking you to open up your wallet for. You almost want to put a lock on your wallet. Like, they're going to keep asking for stuff all the time. But if we can strategize and say, okay, I can already know that in this month they're going to be asking for this, or we're going to do that, and we can sort of really rally around certain things and really make them a real success. That's my hope. It's so important for us to keep this idea of social outreach, in our minds. There's so many good causes, but how do we, get the most here? So I'm hoping to form like a social outreach committee. So like if there's people in the parish here who have a particular heart and zeal for this kind of outreach, please, make yourself known to me, because I'd like to kind of get different representatives from our 4 different partnerships and people with that real zeal for these goodwill projects to sort of work with me to kind of look at all these things and make sure we're not, redundant or duplicating things, or making sure we're picking the best weekends or times to do certain projects, and really just to work with me in this effort, and that'd be great to have help from some people. So be sure, if you're feeling the Lord stirring in your heart, please make yourself known to me after Mass or at the office. I was thinking also about, as great as the step one is, how do we really contribute, right? Whether we're giving, money towards causes, like we have coats for kids this weekend, right? And so the Knights of Columbus are helping us to taking the money that we give and making sure that kids have coats, and especially people immigrating to Canada from warmer climates who aren't used to the cold as much, and we can make sure they're prepared for what awaits them in February, So it's so great such a great act of charity. So we can give money, we can give objects such as like the toiletries drive or for like non-perishable foods or whatever. As you know, there's all these ways we can give. But there's a second level. There's a second level of giving, and that's we need people to actually help distribute these gifts or to do things. So for example, it's great to write a check or to give items to St. Vincent de Paul, but there's another level where St. Vincent de Paul Society, we really need people to actually do the visits, because we have to go 2 by 2 to the people's places, or to make the phone calls, or to respond and assess the situations, or to give it out. So we need people with that kind of special giftedness to help that way, and so, or just warm bodies for different things to make these events go well. Like volunteers for like the Special Olympics that we have in June with the Knights of Columbus, or things like that, right? Just whatever it is, we need help, right? And so if you feel in your heart that you not only are willing to contribute, financially or with specific goods, it's also great if you're willing to contribute just with your time, right? And just be a listening heart. Maybe you want to, you don't have, the ability to go visiting the poor per se, but maybe you have time to work with the care and companionship group to maybe go to the nursing homes or visit some shut-ins, or just to give people some care and attention that may be feeling lonely. That's another way. But it's ways to give of ourselves in that next level, right? And so if you're feeling that stirring in your hearts too, I ask you to take that to the Lord in prayer and just see where it might be a good way to give of your time and energy. Because this is all part of the gospel message, right? That Jesus is saying, be there for those who are less fortunate, be there for those who are needy, and you will be rewarded in heaven. That there's something good about giving now to people that can't actually repay you, because then you're doing it for true Christian motives, right? And that God will take care of repaying us in different ways. And that's his promise to us. And I think we all have these feel-good stories, right? And so may we continue the stream of feel-good stories of paying it forward and loving others as best we can. And in conclusion, I just wanted to reflect upon this idea that whatever Jesus teaches, he practices, right? So he's asking us to do this, but he did it himself, right? He was always welcoming of those who were, on the margins, and was not ashamed to hang out with them, because he saw in them their deeper human dignity and his desire to save them, and he invites us first. Think about it. We are here at Mass. And as the letter to the Hebrews teaches, we have not, just come to the mountain with trumpets and gloom and being afraid before the presence of God. We've come to Mount Zion, right? We're in the heavenly Jerusalem. When we come to Mass, yes, we're in Lower Sackville, but we're also in the heavenly Jerusalem, being brought to us, and we are being brought to it with myriads of angels and saints around the throne singing hallelujah. So even though we can't see it with our natural eyes, the eyes of faith, we can know we are in the presence of angels and saints right now. At the Holy Mass, we who can't repay Jesus for his gift of salvation, we are still invited to the wedding banquet of the Lamb. We're here. We're on the guest list. We've made it. We're here with the Lord, and he's welcomed us here. He knows we can't repay him, but he's invited us anyway. He's going to feed us with the greatest of gifts of all, his very love and life and presence in our midst. And so today, as we sort of recognize this awesomeness of God's generosity and love for you and for me, despite our failings and our struggles and our weaknesses and our brokenness, we're coming and he's filling us. We're invited. We're not excluded. So when we're dismissed from Mass and commissioned to go forth, we then, filled with this fresh sense of love and welcome and invitation, can go and bring that to others by the way we love each other out there in the world. So this is where it starts, right here. humbling ourselves before the Lord, and being excited that we're on the guest list to the heavenly banquet in the heavenly Jerusalem. Amen.